Good morning again. I have a question for you. Are there any differences between males and females? Turns out you'll probably get a different answer depending on whom you ask. A week and a half ago, the President of the United States signed several executive orders the day he became president. One of them was entitled, "The Executive Order on Preventing and Combating Discrimination on the Basis of Gender Identity or Sexual Orientation." The exact order declares these words, and I quote, "Children should be able to learn without worrying about whether they will be denied access to the restroom, the locker room, or school sports. All persons should receive equal treatment under the law, no matter their gender identity or sexual orientation." End of quote. In all my years, I've never known of anyone to be deprived of going to the bathroom. But I guess that's an issue now. And obviously, especially going into the opposite restroom. So it's now legal for a boy to join a girl's boxing team and beat the brains out of another girl. And now it's also legal for a boy to join the girls' swimming team and then join the team in the locker room as they change. So with all of the confusion going on, people are just not knowing what the truth is about boys and girls. Going further, it was stated regarding this executive order that any school that receives federal funding, including nearly every public school, must either allow biological boys who self-identify as girls onto girls' sports teams or face administrative action from the education department. I'm getting this information from the Wall Street Journal. They interviewed one of the coaches for the United States Olympic field and track team. Her name was Coach Blade. Linda Blade was asked about this, and what do you think this will do for the future of girls' sports? She had two short words to answer. Finished. Done. Why would a girl want to join a sport that's not allowing her to do what she wants to do and compete against other girls? Specifically, she added that parents of teen girls are generally uninterested in watching their daughters demoralized by the blatant unfairness of a rigged competition. Well, it doesn't end there. We know this battle's been going on for years. And even in the United States House of Representatives right now, they are working to pass H.R. 1, which includes the statement or idea that they will never again ever differentiate between genders in every future legislation. There will never be any more male, female, boy, girl, him, her, he, or she. People today are getting confused. What is the truth? What is their gender identity? Well, we're going to cover that in the next couple of weeks. We want to go to the Bible to see what God has to say, especially since He's the one who created us. So would you open your Bibles to Ruth chapter 2? We're going through the book of Ruth, and one of the key topics that appears in today's chapter are qualities of a great woman. And next week we're going to look at the qualities of a great man. So if you feel like today's message is biased towards one side, then that'll be God's prompting to you that you need to be back next week to hear the other message that's directed towards the qualities of a great man. Well, I want us to look first at popular qualities of a great woman. Popular qualities of a great woman. These are the ideas that people in our society have. And one of the many is external beauty. So what I want us to do now is to go through the book of Ruth and pull out all of the passage to talk about how beautiful Ruth was. Well, there are none. She might have been beautiful on the outside, but the passages don't say anything about that because it would have taken away from the main point. The most valuable characteristics of a woman have nothing to do with exterior beauty, even though the world would disagree. The mindset of the world is a woman has worth if she can get the heads of other men to turn and look at her. Her worth increases from a worldly perspective if she can cause lust and adulterous thoughts to be stirred up within other men, because that's what Jesus said takes place in a man's heart if he looks at a woman the wrong way. External beauty is not a characteristic of a great woman. If she has it, wonderful. Her husband thoroughly enjoys that. But it's not a quality that God has listed for a great woman. There's another characteristic that's popular today about the value of a woman, and that is if she's never been married. You know, she's like available, she's not taken. But when you think of Ruth, that isn't fit for her at this point of the story. When you get to chapter 2, you discover she's already been married for about 10 years and she's now widowed. We see that in chapter 1, verse 5, among many other passages. Another characteristic that's popular today about women, giving them their worth, is their age. Specifically, a woman needs to be very young to have great value. That's perceived by people in society. And if a woman is considered beautiful on the exterior, for some reason she loses her jobs if she loses her figure or loses any of her exterior beauty. Many of the models are paid tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a model. But as soon as they are no longer in their young 20s, it's like the idea is they are worthless now. They should just move on. We're going to go get someone else who has greater value, another young person. Well, that's another negative notch for Ruth, because when you look at the story, it shows that she's about 30 years old. At least in America, she's probably too old to have value. Now, I'm not talking everyone in America feeling that way, and I'm not saying that anyone has that perspective of someone being 30 and older and being too old. But you know what I mean. It's like the emphasis is on a woman when she's beautiful on the outside, that's where the worth of a woman is found. We see here that in chapter 1, verse 4 that she was married for about 10 years, and if you say she got married in her later teen years, and if you say a little bit of time passed from the passing of her husband to the time she's in Bethlehem, meeting this guy named Boaz, then it's possible she's near the age of 30. But I want to mention one other aspect that could be a negative for Ruth, and that is she's a foreigner. Many people today don't have as a priority a woman from another nation. Now, I know many people do have a higher respect for them. Maybe they like the accent. Maybe there's a certain hair color or a design that they like. But commonly, people are more interested in their own kind. So let's just pick those 4 only, and we look at Ruth and we say, what kind of a great woman could she be if she has at least 3 of these 4 characteristics? The 4th one being beauty, which isn't even mentioned. I think it's sad that many of the movies made of this book, many of the cartoons and picture books made about the story of Ruth will almost always have an attractive young woman meeting up with a very attractive young man named Boaz. That is so sad, because that's the very thing the book is trying to get away from. People who write these stories are wanting audience approval. They want to satisfy the fantasies of their listening audience without being true to the text. She may have been attractive, but that's not the primary quality that's listed for her. So let's go ahead and look at the passage. Let's pull out 4 characteristics, 4 qualities of a great woman listed in the book of Ruth. There are many other great qualities mentioned elsewhere in the Bible, but we don't have time to cover the entire Bible. So we're going to cover those 4 primary ones in the book of Ruth. The first one I want to mention is inward beauty. Not just the outward beauty, but a woman who's beautiful on the inside. She's caring, she's compassionate, she's generous, she's sharing. She wants the best for other people. Look at chapter 2, verse 5. Boaz meets this woman. He sees her at a distance working in the fields. He asks about her. So in verse 5, Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" The servant in charge of the reapers replied, "She is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab." You have to notice something significant even about the word "the." He didn't say she's a woman, a Moabite, but he mentions the woman to show that this man has already told Boaz about her. Or if you go back to the end of chapter 1 and you see that when Naomi returned to Bethlehem, that her return to Bethlehem was the buzz among the women. Now, in those days, places like that consisted of families and extended families, so that almost everybody in Bethlehem would be at least somewhat related, maybe a long-distance cousin. So they knew each other. Naomi has returned. The buzz is there. And now when Boaz asks about her, it seems this guy is explaining, oh, she's the one that people have been talking about. The one who is so gracious and kind. But I want us to look at chapter 3, verse 11. If there's one verse to get out of this message for today, this one is it. It's incredible, amazing, it's magnificent, and accurate. In Ruth chapter 3, verse 11, Boaz says to her, "Now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you whatever you ask. For all my people in the city know that you are a woman of excellence. Nowhere in this passage does it say from Boaz, I'll do whatever you say because you're such a beautiful looking girl. I'll do all these great things because you're so young and good looking. Nowhere in the passage does it say, because you've already established yourself in business and you're the CEO of the largest organization in town, because you make millions of dollars and so that I can sit home and do nothing. That's not what the passage says. Women want to know how they can be an influence on others, especially men. This passage nails it. Boaz said, I will do whatever you ask. I'll do whatever you ask. Why? Because I heard you're a woman of excellence. Isn't that an amazing thing? And for us men, we're kind of like going, duh, that's obvious. When a woman is gracious and kind, that's a totally different person than the woman who's just trying to get attention and to show herself off. But a person who's gracious, a man will say, boy, I want to spend my time with her. She is the quality person that a man would want to be with. Therefore, we have this great conclusion. You know, you've often heard phrases that when a woman is trying to reach a man, the statement is, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Now, there's a little bit of truth to that, but it's not the real truth. I'd like to come at it from a different perspective and give you a very accurate description. A woman with external beauty may turn the heads of men, but a woman with internal beauty will turn the hearts of men. So what does she want? Does she want just a singular glance from a man? Or a 10-second stare? Or would she rather have his heart? That can be accomplished when a woman is a woman of character. A woman with internal beauty. You see this throughout the Bible. 1 Peter chapter 3 states that a woman should not be a woman who's braided her hair and has all the jewels and tries to make herself beautiful on the outside. But it says the inner woman of the heart. So many other passages add to that. But let's move on to the second quality. The first really good quality is this inward beauty. The second is diligence. And you may ask, how does that fit in with the big picture? Well, it's mentioned in the book of Ruth, so let's point it out. Go to chapter 2, verse 7. She said, now this is Ruth speaking to her mother-in-law, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. Thus she came and has remained from the morning until now. She has been sitting in the house for a little while. Now skip down to verse 17. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Here's a woman who's willing to accept responsibility. She's a single adult woman. She's living with another single adult woman, her mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is no doubt nowhere near physically fit to do work. It's difficult for women in those days to make a living. It was just difficult. So Ruth has all this extra responsibility and says, I'm willing to be diligent. I'm willing to accept responsibility and do my part to survive. That is the complete opposite of this growing mindset in America called socialism, that has a kind of a under the current idea that says rich people should work and give their money to me while I sit at home and do nothing. It is so sad how that is prevailing. I know one young man who does not want to work. He has never worked. He lives on welfare. One day he had to have his teeth worked on. The dentist in the community was willing to do the work for him. And it doesn't mean he did it for free, but I'll leave that to the side. After the process was done, the procedure was finished, I went back to the dentist office, picked him up, and then he had to go to the drugstore to get some medication. He had a prescription. Okay. We went to the drugstore and he was told to purchase 3 Tylenol capsules. 3. And 7 Advil capsules. That was it. That was all he needed for the severe pain in his mouth. He was charged $28. But because he's on welfare, he didn't have to pay for it. And you wonder, that doesn't sound right. With $28, he could have bought bottles of the stuff on the shelf. But that's true. The welfare system knows how to get money out of it. The doctor got his kickback. The drugstore got their kickbacks. They're charging the government because the government will pay them whatever. He turned to me and he said, look, it's $28 and I got this for free. And I confess, I uncorked in front of him and said, it's free to you because the government takes the money out of my paycheck. Ruth is not that way. She's willing to get out there and do the work that needs to be done. This is a very positive characteristic. But let's move on to the third area. The third area is a servant's spirit. This is where I'd like for us to camp out if at all possible. This is the real tug-of-war that differentiates between a woman being a great woman and a woman who's probably chasing after the world's desires. Look now at chapter 2, verse 10. Then she, Ruth, fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and saying to Boaz, why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? Boaz replied to her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me, and how you left your father and your mother in the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. This is incredible. So what did she do? When you go back to Ruth chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, which we covered last week, we see that Ruth had the option to stay in Moab, but she voluntarily chose to follow Naomi and live for her, follow her gods, follow her nation's ways. As we saw, the passage in chapter 1 said that Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. Do you see the servant spirit she has within her heart? She's willing to live for other people and do what's best for other people and put aside her nationality, her gods, and everything else to follow the gods of the Jew. She is willing to submit to God's ways. Then she picks up in chapter 2, verse 12. Rather, Boaz speaking, may the Lord reward your work and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your sight, my Lord. She called Boaz my Lord. Now, granted, he's like a boss to her out there in the fields, but he got that respect. And it continues by saying, for you have comforted me and indeed have spoken kindly to your maidservant. Maidservant? Yeah, I looked up the word, and the word means, in the original language, the female slave or female servant. She's calling herself a servant to Boaz. I will do what's best for you. Isn't it amazing that's how God designed women? To be a helper, a helpmeet to a husband, not necessarily to any other man on planet Earth, but this bent, this passion in a woman has been given by God to serve and lead her husband so that he can be the most successful man he can possibly be. This goes against today's vicious mindset that women should control the men. That is a prevailing idea that continues to grow and grow. It started a lot in the 1960s, but it is gaining incredible speed now in many different ways. I'd like to give you two different words to help give a more biblical perspective of the truth. The first word explains the worldly perspective. It's called egalitarianism. People who hold to this view say that a man and a woman are equal, and the strongest woman is just as strong as the strongest man, and the smartest woman is just as smart as the smartest man. And every other characteristic, they are equal. The men and women are equal. And if you put the strongest athlete against the strongest athlete of the opposite gender, the race will always end in a tie. Egalitarianism says we're all the same. In addition, it says we should all get paid the same for the same amount of work. Now, we all agree with certain aspects, but the truth is we have different roles. So a word that's been created in the last few years to talk about different roles is complementarianism. Where a man and a woman get married, they are equal in the eyesight of God. They have equal value. They have equal worth. They are both as precious as Jesus Christ in the eyesight of God the Father. But in our roles on earth, the roles are different. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1 says, God the Son is equal to God the Father. But God the Son submits to God the Father. And that men are to submit to God the Son. And that women are to submit to their own husbands. That's the role that we will play here on earth. When we go up into heaven, God says there will not be male or female. We'll all be the same. But while here on earth, we have separate roles. And when people push for women to have dominance over the men, and believe me, a lot of it is not equality. The real driving force is dominance over the men. I understand that many women have somewhat of a legitimate argument for their anger and bitterness, because over 50% of girls have been violated by men before they ever turned 18 years. Now, any woman who becomes angry and bitter is not free to be that way. We're all held accountable. We're responsible for our anger and bitterness. But I'm saying I do understand why there's a hurt feeling towards the men. But it doesn't make it right to go before God and say, I want to violate your standards now and rewrite the roles. God has the perfect plan. He has a plan for the man, which we will cover next week. And he has a role for the woman. And when a woman has a servant's spirit, we see that attitude that was mentioned at the very beginning. We see that Boaz was willing to do anything for Ruth. because of her excellence, because of her character. Now, I'd like to give an incredible illustration, a truthful one, as you will see, that really shows how we're not talking about equal rights, women's lib, any of that. It's really about women controlling the men. You may know about what's called a gender-neutral Bible. You will hear over and over and over how the Bible misinterprets God, calling him a man. And many women get very upset about that. Therefore, they want to change the words, so instead of saying, "Our Father who art in heaven," they want to change it so, "Our parent who is in heaven." But here's the catch. You will never hear any of them say, we need to go to the Bible and remove the masculine pronoun from Satan. Why is it that they want to remove the third person singular masculine emphasis from God, but they want to make sure that Satan's name remains masculine? The focus is not about equal rights. The focus is how can we gain control over a man? Did you know the majority of pictures and paintings of angels are represented as women? But I never hear any complaints from equal rights about how they need to paint more often with men as angels. So you're starting to see there's something more to it than just this seeming picture of equal rights. The real bottom core is bitterness towards God and bitterness towards men. But God has a positive way for us to deal with that. I want us to continue with this with just a little bit more by looking at how it's being applied. I don't have time to go on so much more of details. But women are trying to control men in sports. Even the San Francisco 49ers have hired a woman to be a coach to teach the professional football players how to be a man. The San Antonio Spurs have a professional basketball team, has hired a woman to be a coach to teach the men how to be men. There are referees now in professional sports, both basketball and in football. I don't know about the others just yet. But what if a player ever gets in confrontation with the referee, guess who wins? The referee. And if the referee is a woman, then the man is humiliated because he's being told by a woman what to do. Now, for the women, none of this will make any sense. But we men understand it. And then after the event, we go hang out with the guys, and they ask, "How did your day go?" And you say, "Oh, some woman controlled me and told me what to do." And all the other men laugh at you for being a sissy and for not being a man. God made men to lead, to be the hero. And when a man is subjected to a woman in the sense that she becomes his hero, it's degrading for a man to have these women to be a coach teaching them how to be a man. And I know the technical wording for many of them would be, no, well, she's just teaching them how to run fast. Or she's just teaching them how to catch a football. But deep down inside, something that only we men understand is the only way we learn how to be a man is to see another man be a man, and we can copy. We understand this concept of monkey see, monkey do. And if we never see, we never do. We need to see the example. We need a male father figure to show us how to be a man. But this dominance today of women saying we need to control, not only in the sports, but also in business. The city of Youngstown has this award called the Athena Award, where women who are the most productive in business are given an award for being the greatest woman of the year. It has nothing to do with the biblical standards for what a woman should be. It's the woman who can do the most and dominate the most and conquer the most in the world of business. God said in Genesis 3 that the curse for a man for that sin was that he needs to go out in the field and work. The woman, her curse had to do with increased pain in childbirth. The picture is her place is in the home. Other passages state God designed her to have the most important influence over a child and forming character. The woman's influence cannot be surpassed. It can be equal to the father's influence, which is equally strong, but a woman's influence at home is powerful. And when a woman says, I don't want to carry the responsibilities that God has given, but I want to go into a man's world and deprive him of his opportunities to lead, then what's he supposed to do if he doesn't accept the curse from the Lord? Well, he doesn't have any work to do. That is an interesting twist of thinking, that a woman should go into a man's world and dominate the men. Now, I know for every statement I make, I will hear like a dozen counter arguments. Obviously, Randy, you think such and such. I am not saying it's a sin for a woman to get a job. I am not saying it's a sin for a woman to be the president of a company. But I am saying that when the attitude of society is that women should dominate men, that is a serious problem. Women are to have a servant spirit. Have you noticed in the last week or two how women are bragging about how women are taking over the government in certain departments and divisions? And believe it or not, it's taking place in churches. In the last few years, there's this incredible surge about pastors being women. And the harsh comments being made about how women need to invade the seminaries and take at least half the positions of the professors and the seminary presidents. One person has even stated this audacious claim that any man who goes through seminary led only by men is an evil tragedy to society. How could he possibly be a pastor to people if all he has had as men as his leaders in seminary? This attitude is so pervasive. But I want to go to the final point of the message, which in chapter 4, we get this picture of God praising a woman for being a homemaker. Look at chapter 4, verse 14. Then the women said to Naomi, after Ruth bore a child, "Blessed is the Lord who has not left you without a redeemer today, and may his name become famous in Israel. May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, Ruth, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." What an incredibly positive statement about motherhood and bringing a child into the world and taking care of the child. But sadly, our society says a real woman will destroy her unborn child. In fact, one of our government leaders has point blank said, we need to have more abortions in order to stimulate the economy. Do you catch what the leader said? The leader said we need to kill people for the purpose of making money. that is so sad. It's on the YouTube still of this leader degrading motherhood for the sake of making money in our country. Ruth sets this incredible example for womanhood. The qualities of a woman include internal or inward beauty, diligence, a servant's spirit, and also being a homemaker. And I would like for us to again review chapter 3, verse 11. When Boaz said, "Now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you whatever you ask. For all my people in this city know that you are a woman of excellence." The most powerful force on planet Earth is not a man because he has the power of position. Seriously, truthfully, the most powerful person on planet Earth is a woman who has the power of influence. When a woman applies these qualities, a man will respond just like Boaz. And I'm not saying that if a woman does apply the qualities, it's guaranteed her husband will change. God gives free will. But I will say this, the most powerful force is not anger or a clenched fist or beautiful skin. The most powerful force is a woman of character. A woman who is full of the Holy Spirit and of the Lord and lives for other people. Will you be a woman of great quality?